You're not fit to take care of the baby." My mother stood in the doorway, hands on her hips, eyes squinting, her tone full of contempt. I held my son, his tiny hand clutching my finger, letting out a soft cry. "You really think you can manage? You can't even take care of yourself." My sister leaned against the doorframe, swiping her phone with a cold laugh. I crouched down, holding my son tightly against my chest, and slowly lifted my head. "I might be tired, but at least I'm here." Mother scoffed, shaking the bracelet on her wrist. "Tired? Being tired won't save you, let alone the baby." But weeks later, she was begging for my forgiveness at the police station, her hands trembling so she could barely hold the folder. My sister paced the empty living room, constantly tapping on her phone screen. I stood silently, watching their fear and trembling. They were finally paying the price they deserved. 6 weeks ago, I had sent a message to my family from the hospital: "Please, someone bring a blanket or help me feed the baby." No one responded. I was still in pain from the C-section, numb from the waist down, and my arms shook from the anesthesia. The baby cried in the bassinet beside me, and I could barely turn to pick him up. The nurse frowned. "Is someone coming to help you?" I shook my head, tears slipping silently down my face. I opened my phone and saw that everyone had read the message in the group chat. Not a single reply, not even an emoji. The next morning, I woke to find no messages, but there was a Facebook post: my mother and sister on a beach vacation, smiling in the sun. I realized then, they had planned this all along, deliberately absent at my most vulnerable moment. And my fiancé had been killed in Afghanistan 7 months earlier. I had learned I was pregnant shortly after receiving the news. He never got to hear the baby's heartbeat. My family had promised to support me, but the only person who showed up was Mrs. Granger from next door. She brought a few snacks and sat with me for a few minutes. That small kindness was more real than anything my family had ever done. 6 weeks later, they returned, and the first thing I saw was over 80 missed calls and a message from my sister: "You have to send me $5,000. I stared at my phone, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, remembering my helplessness after the anesthesia wore off. I sat in the hospital bed, the baby crying in my arms, barely able to move my arms. At that moment, I realized it wasn't just my body that had been hurt, it was my mind being hollowed out. I replied, "I'm still numb from the waist down. You know, I just had a C-section." 3 hours passed with no response, then came a threatening message: "Or Mom and Dad could lose the house." I stayed calm, opened my computer, and checked the loan records. 3 weeks ago, my father had secretly taken out a $50,000 home equity loan that was already delinquent. Meanwhile, my mother had started a GoFundMe, using my pregnancy and my fiancé's death as a pretense, raising over $1,000, claiming it was for the family's financial crisis. I started taking action. First, I reported it to the police. Then I contacted the bank's fraud department. I scanned all the loan documents, took screenshots of the GoFundMe page, and organized the information. At the same time, I installed security cameras to ensure no one could intrude on my life again. A few days later, my father used the spare key to take the car. He was careful, as if afraid to make a sound. I watched the footage calmly, without a flicker of emotion. "That's the last time you try to control me and the baby's life." When I reported it, I didn't cry or shout. I handed over the evidence to the police. They investigated, recovered the car, and my mother became involved in multiple fraudulent loan investigations. Looking back, I realized the humiliation I had endured over the years had accumulated in me. When I was a child, my mother would call me clumsy at family gatherings, saying I couldn't take care of anyone. My sister always mocked me publicly for not knowing how to manage life. After my fiancé died, my family offered no comfort, reminding me, "Life is like this, you have to be strong." I had endured all of it silently, burying the pain deep inside. But now, my revenge was not just about retaliation, it was protection. I learned to analyze calmly, gradually take control, and every action was deliberate. The shame from the past became strength, and at the core of that strength was the safety of my child and me. The revenge began through a combination of legal action and strategy. Mother continued attempting to obtain money through fraudulent loans. I gave the police her IP address, email records, and fake documents. Every time she tried to call and threaten me, I recorded it, preserving every word as evidence. Father had tried to avoid responsibility, but when I laid out the video and documents in front of him, fear finally hit him. He realized I had investigated thoroughly and had legal evidence. He began to tremble, coffee cup in hand, fingertips white. I didn't expect it to get this serious. I did not shout in anger. I simply said, "This is what you sowed." My sister began to feel the pressure too. She tried to text for forgiveness, portraying herself as a victim, but I remained unmoved. Every message was filed calmly, my replies short and firm, "You know the consequences." Mother panicked further, going to the police station to try to accuse me, fabricating documents. The officers saw through her tricks and verified all the evidence I provided. Her face turned pale, her hands trembled, and her voice quavered, You can't do this." I just looked at her, calm and steady, holding the printed loan records and GoFundMe evidence. She begged for mercy, please help me. I'll repay. I promise." I shook my head, saying nothing. Weeks later, her house faced foreclosure, and my father completely withdrew from the family conflict. My mother was under investigation, my sister stayed silent. I regained my freedom and safety. The only thing left was my child's quiet breathing and my steady steps. After several attempts to communicate, my father finally chose to make amends. No flowery apologies, just concrete actions, delivering baby supplies, helping move heavy items, checking on the baby's meals and schedule. I gradually accepted his efforts but stayed cautious. In the end, I stood by the window, watching sunlight spill across the floor, my son playing beside me. The humiliation and betrayal of the past transformed into calm control. I did not celebrate or flaunt it. There was only the quiet sense of victory. I was finally in control of my life and my safety.